Hi everyone, welcome to our little introduction to Google Analytics 360. Just to introduce myself a bit more, I'm Dan, I'm the Analytics Executive at Croud and I've been at Croud for 4 months now. So yeah, Tammy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Tammy, I'm the Senior Analytics Manager at Croud. I've been with the company now for just over 3 years, helping develop the team and strategize our measurement and analytics strategies. Previously, I have experience as a research scientist for quite a few years, so I've always been able to sort of use data and to help find answers to questions and everything like that. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions today as well.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, so our agenda for today is we're going to go through our kind of top 5 features in GA360 and the 5 things that we think really sets it apart. And as part of that, we're going to look at how you can integrate it with BigQuery and kind of the options that that gives you as well. And then we've got a bit of time at the end to answer a few questions if anyone has any. Okay, so first of all, why Google Analytics 360? So I know there's a lot of different reasons why people might be watching this. It could be that you're trying to just learn more about GA360. You might be somebody who works for a company, or you might own your own business that is using GA360. Or you might be considering if it's worth transitioning to GA360. Hopefully some of what we talk about today will give you a bit of insight into that and help you answer some of those questions. And we're going to, in the 5 key points we're going to cover, we're going to go through them in kind of a chronology that kind of works from the day one benefits that you get when you first install GA, that's there right off the bat. As soon as you have it, you have this benefit, to some more kind of advanced benefits that require a bit of setup and a bit of time to kind of work at, and you require a bit more of a mature setup with your analytics to kind of make the most of those benefits. But it's still something that's quite achievable and easy to do once you know how it kind of works. So yeah, we're going to start off with Tammy, who's going to talk us through some of the integration aspects and the data quality aspects of GA360.
So one of the key features with GA360 is actually the native integrations with the rest of the Google marketing platform. So this helps build an audience-centric approach, which can integrate your ads and analytics data together into one single source of truth. So you can see here, we've got the marketing campaign data coming from the different platforms flowing into GA to combine with the site analytics data, which we can then use to feed through the system and back through to the platform. So this native integration between all the different Google stack is really the key feature within the GA360. Next slide, please, Dan. Cool. So we can see here that we treat GA360 like a data lake. So you can see here we have all the sources of information flowing in through the 360 platform. So that will be the information coming from the different marketing platforms such as ads, Google Ads, the Campaign Manager, SA360, DV360, as well as also collecting here such as offline data, such as coming from your CRM data or your point of sales or anything that you have in the background that we'd be able to push in into GA360 along with your marketing data. Once it's into GA360, we can then use the other platforms such as the Data Studio and BigQuery, which we'll discuss later on in the webinar. So with Data Studio, you'll be able to create custom dashboards, which allow you to see the overview of all this data coming from both your marketing platforms and your site behavior from GA. So you'll be able to create bespoke dashboards here to help you further analyze and find insights into the data that you've collected. So again, this key native integration actually allows us, once this information is in GA360, to push it back to these platforms. Now, when we discuss BigQuery, this is a huge feature and sort of is for the more sort of mature frameworks that we have once you started building up your measurement strategy. So if you can push the data in from GA into BigQuery, this allows you then to do much more advanced analysis and cleaning of the data, which you can then push back into GA360 and then further on push it into the rest of the marketing stack. So using that to create targeting audiences for ad optimizations and personalizations and everything like that. So using sort of your own customers' data and how they interact with your site to provide a better service through the marketing platforms as well for them. So this kind of gives an overview of the key features and the comparison between the free and the 360 versions of GA. So the key things here are the hits per month. So the hits per month for most sites who are either have set up a lot of tracking or have a lot of visitors per month to the site, they tend to hit this cap of 10 million hits per month quite easily. And this can cause sampling within the GA data, which is quite an issue for quite a few clients. So with the 360, this increases to 500 million, which allows you much more scope for collecting data and reducing those sampling issues that you can get. Another key thing is the actual freshness of the data. So with the free version, it can take up to 24 to 48 hours for the data to actually be processed and pushed into GA. And with the 360 version, that's more of a 4-hour type turnaround. Can be usually on average about 2 hours, but it's given a 4-hour SLA. So if you're got a mature setup and you're needing quite fresh data and you want more of a real-time responsive to the data, then 360 will give you that overview. So the key things here are just the data and reducing your sampling within GA if that is an issue for the bigger clients. Next one, please, Jeff.
Cool beans. So I'm going to talk a bit about custom funnels now, but before I do that, just to give a warning, I have a rogue asleep cat that is by my foot that is starting to stir. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully we don't get an invasion, but if we do, I apologize in advance. So the funnels. So the funnels are kind of a really useful capability in Google Analytics in generally. You might see them in the kind of checkout behavior reports or your shopping behavior reports, in conversion reports of standard GA. But the benefits of GA360 and the custom reports is it's in the name really, is that it's completely customizable to how you ever want to set up your funnel. So it's really easy to define segments and audiences based on these funnels. And we'll give a visual example of that in the next slide. And hopefully that kind of makes a bit more sense when you kind of get that visual image to it. The reporting is also retrospective and it doesn't rely on goal definitions or anything to be defined in advance. So a lot of the time you can, if you don't have your goal definitions set up as and when you want to set up your funnels, it kind of only does it from that day onwards. Whereas with GA360 and the custom funnels, you get that data back for kind of a retrospective and historical analysis. It can also be defined by user behavior across multiple sessions, which is something you can't do in the standard GA setup with funnels anyway. And one of the best features of a custom funnel in GA360, in my opinion, is just the flexibility it offers you with the combinations of your dimensions. You can have as many dimensions as you want to put into it. You can have events, you can have page paths, or you can have really simple segments as well as part of that path. And it's really, it's pretty cool. Sorry to sound like a geek, but it's cool. There are some limitations we need to kind of be aware of though. So in the custom reports, if you're building a custom funnel, you only get 5 steps. If you do it as part of the advanced analysis section of GA360, that's 10 steps. Now, 5 steps is still pretty good, and in my opinion, 10 steps is even better. But obviously, it's not unlimited, so it's kind of it is a limitation in that it is limited, but it's not always necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes less can be more. If you're allowed to do unlimited steps, it's very easy to get carried away. So I think that can be seen as a benefit. It's not compatible with complex segments. So when you're building each individual step of your funnel, even though you can customize it how you want and you can include segments, you've got to make sure that the segments you're using are appropriate, because if you have a segment that's got an or clause, if it's got a sequence or any negations in there, it won't really work that well and the funnel doesn't jibe with it. You can have 5 rules per stage, which again sounds like a limitation, but each rule is regex compatible. So you can use regex to overcome that and expand those rules to however you need to. And finally, there's only 1 segment per funnel. So when you kind of think about that in combination with the fact it's not compatible with your complex segments, always make sure that if you are using segments that as part of your custom funnels, that you'll probably want to be selective over which ones you use. So this is kind of what it looks like when you're setting it up. So as you can see, on the box on the right hand side here, it kind of gives you a lot of useful different ways you can set up this funnel. So you can have it that it's a different stages occur in different sessions over multiple sessions, or you can set it up to all stages have to occur within one session. Really, really useful way if you've got, want to have a look at a particular funnel that you want to see how users who complete that funnel in one session. You could set up 2 different funnels to compare those 2 different routes as well, which can be quite useful. You can have a closed funnel or an open funnel. You can set it to users or sessions. And you can also set it so that the stages don't always have to be subsequent one straight after the other. You can have that if you've got a series of different routes as part of your funnel, it can be that somebody can complete that step and then the next step can be completed at any time in any session that follows. Or it can be immediately after, or you can change that in between each individual stage as well. And again, so a lot of flexibility really. That's the key word with the custom funnels, flexibility. And this is what this would look like. It looks like your standard kind of checkout report or checkout funnel or shopping behavior funnel, but as you can see, you can kind of change all the steps to fit whatever you're looking at. And each sort of little segment within this, so the blue bar that's telling you how many people you've got in that kind of part of the funnel, the drop-off rate at the bottom that's telling you how many people dropped off at that stage. Through this, you can use that as a basis for a segment, which you can then push out into all the other kind of platforms that Tammy's already mentioned that are integrated when you're looking at GA360. And the custom funnels are now part of an advanced analysis tab, which means that you get a bit more kind of flexibility with it. And as we said before, when you do the custom funnel through advanced analysis, you get an extra 5 steps than the 5 you've already got, so 10 steps. And I think that's really, really useful because you can go really granular then and get some really kind of in-depth analysis going and some really useful insights. Within the advanced analysis section, there are other components and we're going to quickly go through them as well. So we've already gone through the custom funnels, so that's fine. So next we're going to kind of think about the segment overlaps. Now, this is a really useful visualization and analysis tool, and it really helps you kind of reveal the relationships between audience segments that might be quite difficult to see, because normally to kind of get an idea of this, you would have to either enable various different segments all at once in a report, which can make a report quite hard to read within the standard reports, or it's a lot of toing and froing from different reports, and then it's making a note of it, going back to the report, and it's quite easy to kind of lose your focus when you're kind of trying to do all that. With GA360, giving you that visualization and showing you the relationship between all those segments means that that kind of gap between looking at the data, getting some insight from it, and then trying to do something with it is just brought together and almost instantaneously. And one of the most notable ways of using this particular feature is looking at kind of behavior or customer focus segments. And you can use that to understand how kind of your remarketing audiences can overlap with each other, for example. Next, we're going to look at the exploration tables. Now, this essentially is a fancy pivot table. And I know that doesn't sound too exciting, but what you can do is you can set it up as a custom report to analyze kind of all the different dimensions and metrics that you want to measure. But if you have a look at the little kind of box on the screen that's towards bottom right hand corner that's kind of highlighted, in this report, you can right click on any of the metrics within each dimension and you can create a segment or build an audience right there and then. Off one click, done. So again, as similar with the segment overlap, it really, really brings down that time of insight and actioning it to almost seconds within that. As part of this as well, you can also, including these tables, data that you've imported from other sources. So if we were to import maybe some CRM data from your offline kind of capabilities, push in extra stuff from DV360, SA360, data in from BigQuery, wherever you kind of want to pull it in from, you can then include all of that into these tables. And then when you have that, in addition to this into your general GA360 data, it means that you can build some really well-defined, heavily data-driven audiences, which is exactly what you want from it, really, to really get into the nitty-gritty of the data and to be able to get those really powerful kind of audiences that you can then push out for you across your different kind of marketing platforms. So now, Tammy, I'm going to hand it over to you again to go through attribution.
So yeah, so the DDA model in GA360, like I say, it provides this breakdown of how each step contributes to each step of the journey. But again, this is sort of a black box. So we don't know exactly how these numbers are being generated, or, you know, we can give slight customizations to the model, but we can't really see exactly how these numbers are being generated. So that's one thing to consider. As well as, like I said previously, hopefully it caught, I'm not sure with the audio, but Google have since released a beta, an attribution beta as well. And this is based on removing sort of direct from the channels. And this is available to all accounts, both the free and the 360 versions. So the DDA model isn't so much of a unique feature to the GA360, but it's still something that can be very useful and used and applied to, obviously, with those native integrations, pushing it back and seeing exactly what's happening. Next slide, please. Cool. So here we just have a comparison across the stack for the different platforms. So key thing here is that, obviously, although there are attribution models within the other platforms like DV360 and SA360, it's only based on the data that was contained within those platforms. So for SA360, you'd only be seeing your paid search activity, and for DV360, you'd only be seeing it based on the channels that are available in that. While with the GA360, we can see all those different channels, so your organic, your direct, any CRM data or anything like that, that we can see that full visibility across that journey, as well as also including the site data. Cool. So the three sort of options that you have as far as attribution are concerned are using the custom models, whether it's in GA360 or with the other marketing platforms. And for these, you can customize them slightly, but again, it's kind of like a black box and we don't really know exactly how these are being calculated. And you always just want to ensure that you sort of have that granular breakdown as well. So you're breaking apart the brand and non-brand and your prospecting and remarketing, as these all behave quite differently. So you just want to make sure that when you are setting attribution, that you are getting that granular level. Another option is to use an external attribution model. So at Croud, we use Markov chains to determine the credit for each step, which I'll discuss a bit later. And the third option is the tailored. So this is using a service, getting a service through a partner. There are quite a few who do a full attribution service. But again, with most things now, with attribution and privacy settings as well, you just want to be making sure that you're collecting as much data as you can, but it may be sort of more limited as time goes on. So there's a lot of research being going on at the moment to try and determine exactly what is sort of the best way for attribution, as obviously it's quite a hot topic at the moment with all the privacy stuff coming in. So next slide, please. Cool. So this is our sort of basic Croud custom model that we do for most of our clients. So this is just either customizing either one of the rules-based or the own DDA model if there's enough data for the DDA model to be created within the customer's account. And this just kind of initially downweights direct or brand search in the last interaction of the customer journey. Usually this is for such items which have a sort of a long consideration and a high value, because usually the decision process will be made a lot earlier in the journey. And so that last step is really just more of they've come to site and they're converting. They've made that decision previously with all the research side of it. So this just helps, again, just to get rid of sort of that direct skew that you would get for people just coming straight through and converting. And then using the data within GA360, we would add further optimization. So if the first touch point was prospecting activity, then perhaps upweighting that, because that would be more valuable than bringing new users to site. So again, based on your own data, we'd be able to customize that model to suit the business needs. Cool. And the second option is this Markov model. This is where we take all that data that's flowing into GA360 through the native integrations of Search Ads and Campaign Manager. So again, with the Campaign Manager, we'd be able to see the impressions and clicks for those ads as well as any sort of CRM data or anything else you have flowing into GA360. We can then extract the path data from 360 and then add it into, we use R at the moment in Croud, and we can apply it to our attribution model. This then gives us the data-driven credit for each step in the journey, which we can use to sort of for any further analysis we need, or budgets or anything like that that is required. So the key thing here as well is that if you are using BigQuery, which is what we'll be discussing next, the option here is at the moment, if you do this, it's only based on the converting paths because we're extracting it straight from 360. But if you have that BigQuery integration, we actually can also include the non-converting paths. So if we can include both the converting and non-converting paths into the attribution model, it improves the accuracy of the credit for each point within that journey. So again, this will help if you're in that sort of more mature stage of the business and your measurement, and you're actually using BigQuery, then this can help improve the attribution as well.
Cool. So I'm going to finish off now by talking about what I personally find is the most exciting thing with the whole kind of GA360 and all the stats. But like I said earlier, I am a massive geek, so I do not expect anyone else to share that enthusiasm. However, it is really cool. So BigQuery is Google's serverless data warehouses, and it uses SQL queries and Google's cloud infrastructure for data processing. And as you can see from the graphic in there, Google BigQuery is also kind of similar to how we would use GA360 as a data lake. And Tammy mentioned that earlier. BigQuery, we'd use that in the same way, but not just from Google-related products. We can import data from all sorts of things, so from Facebook, from Google Sheets, from kind of the offline data or your CRM data, Google Analytics, and then we kind of bring it all into that. I'm going to go into that in a bit more detail now. So GA360 customers, you have the option to export session and hit level data from GA360 into BigQuery. Now, that means that when you're in BigQuery and you're putting your GA360 data into that, you're dealing with your raw hit level data, the like nitty gritty down and dirty part of your data. Whereas in comparison, in the Google Analytics interface, the data you often see is session based and it's aggregated as well. Now, in terms of what difference that makes, the aggregated data is really fine for simple marketing questions. So if we kind of think about, if you wanted to count the number of sessions that came from a mobile device, that's kind of really quite simple data. So session based, that's fine. If you wanted to count the number of video plays from a very particular user across multiple sessions, Google Analytics and even Google 360 itself can struggle with that purely because of the interface. So when you export that data into BigQuery, it then allows you to kind of see that hit level data, and it just opens up the level of analysis you could do on another level. And even though you're doing it in BigQuery, GA360 is kind of the foundation of that, because it's where that data is stored. So all the extra data that you get in GA360 and the ability to pull that out to a hit level is really the foundation of this kind of entire section. So even though we're talking a lot about BigQuery, it's always important to remember that this is GA360 is kind of at the heart of that, really. So when you're accessing the raw data, another great benefit is that there's no sampling, which is just, it speaks for itself. Data was not sampled, means you've got all the data that you have access to and that's being collected. Great, winner, winner. So it also allows for more powerful segmentation. So user-based segments in the Google Analytics interface are restricted to a 90-day look-back window, I believe. Now, if the interaction you're looking at occurs before that, then you can't see it at all. Big data query, it never goes away. So you can create complex segmentation rules that go back in time as far as you like. As far as your data goes back, you can create a segment that goes that far back. Or you can create a dynamic segment within BigQuery where one specific behavior is required for another one. So it's kind of using variables within the segment as well, which again opens up the level of analysis, the level of insight that you can do and what you can gain from it. It just takes it to another level, really, and you're able to do all that in BigQuery. You're also able to combine dimensions in your tables. Now, the Google Analytics data model is structured in that session-based way. And when we get those session-based dimensions, so source medium, for example, that doesn't always play well with kind of the user level or page level dimensions or metrics. And there's also a limit to the number of dimensions we can see side by side. 2 dimensions is usually the limit within a standard report. And obviously you've got the custom report element as well, where you can add as many as you want, I believe. But obviously, you've still got that kind of issue with combining different types of metrics and data, and session levels with user level kind of metrics. Still, kind of that still occurs, and you don't really have that in BigQuery. In fact, there are, I've just double checked, there are actually no limitations when it comes to these things. So again, it expands everything massively. Also, you can reclaim all that historical data that you can lose out on sometimes with Google Analytics. Now, this is this makes my heart flutter a little bit in like all the right ways, because the amount of times when you realize that data hasn't been pulling in properly, and all of a sudden, that's it. All that data for that week is gone. You might have been running a really cool campaign. You want to check all the numbers from it, and you can't, and you're never going to get that back, and it's really sad. Now, Google Analytics processes the data in that kind of way of that wherever you kind of set things up, it's from that day onwards. So if you have a goal from there, and then that's when the data pulls in and it registers as that goal is complete. When you put all that data into BigQuery, you can then set up a query that sets what that goal is, and it goes, again, similar to everything else, as far back as your data goes. So you can set up a goal at any point and think, oh, I know, this is a really useful particular interaction that we want to set up as a goal on our site. Yeah, and export it into BigQuery, and all that historical data, all the people who in the past who've achieved that goal will also be included as achieving that goal, whereas in standard Google Analytics, you can't do that. So that's really, really cool. And then we get the data science elements of it. Now, the data and innovation team have been doing lots of cool stuff with this, and we're going to go into a bit more depth of what they've been doing. But it's really, really, really powerful stuff. Now, I'm not going to claim to know a lot about the data science techniques. That's for people who are far smarter than me, but I do kind of know the capabilities. So in Google Analytics, everything we see is descriptive. It's things that it's reporting on what we've already seen. It's describing that data. When we put it into BigQuery and we apply some of the data science techniques, for analysis, we can take that descriptive analysis and then make it predictive. So we can use regressions to really kind of have a look at what we would expect from the data going forward, and it can be really kind of a useful way to plan campaigns and all sorts of stuff going forward. And it also allows you to build machines to machine learning, which if you set up the query right, you can develop a machine learning kind of query that will pick and find clusters of data within your data set and then match that up to audiences, or you can use it to build segments, or you can really use it in a way to find that most valuable user journey that might be there that you might not even be aware of. And all that can be achieved by taking that GA360 data, putting it into BigQuery, and then letting the smart data scientists do whatever they do with it. You know, the voodoo must be magic. I don't think real people can actually do that. An example of how we can use this, of what it actually looks like. So this is how you might match in CRM data. So as you can see here, we've got the GA360 data, the unsampled hit level data in our tables here. And then we've got the returns data on the right from your back-end CRM kind of whatever software you may use for it. Now, what you've got is here, you've got the transaction ID. That is acting as your join key. So as long as you've got a join key that can bring those two data sets together so that they can kind of make sure they're corroborating properly, you can then bring that together. And all of a sudden, what is just a report of page views and transaction ID now gives you insight of if those people have returned or not. And then that means that we can then take that data, our joined data that we put together in BigQuery, send it back into Google Analytics or into Data Studio, and then you can visualize it and get that kind of idea of, for in this example, it's for people who've returned and people who haven't. Now, linking this back into kind of the advanced analysis stuff, when we think about those reports that allow us to build segments and audiences like that, if we kind of use this stuff and all this BigQuery stuff, bring it together, visualize it, and then you want to send it back into GA, and then we go into GA360's advanced analysis tabs where we can build segments like that. All of a sudden, something that would take a long, long time to do with lots of complicated tasks becomes a lot simpler, and we're building up profiles of people who've returning items as opposed to those who don't. And GA360 really acts as the foundation of all that. So even though a lot of that occurs outside of GA360, without that raw data to inform and join together with all our other sources, it wouldn't really mean anything. So yeah, it's a really, really powerful way to use it. A case example that we've done at Croud is we've been using the COVID-19 data with some of our clients' data to kind of have a look at how things like new cases, recovery rates are impacting on sites, the site usage across various clients. So again, another benefit of BigQuery, when you're a GA360 customer and you've got that all kind of platform linked in, is you've got access to big public data sets. And here you can see we've got the Johns Hopkins University data set for COVID-19. I think it has, let me just read the number on the screen, 168,000 rows of data. That's a lot of data, and you're going to struggle. I don't even know if that would be possible to get that many rows within Google Analytics, to be honest with you. So we can go into BigQuery, we can take that data, and then we can combine it with our unsampled GA360 data. We find a joint key. We've been using country and dates of our joint keys so that it brings it together. And there's probably it's probably a lot more complicated than I'm making it, and the data scientists and the data and innovation team are probably ripping their hair out if they watch this going, it's not that simple, Dan. But for the purpose of this, it is that simple. And then we put the joint key and then we bring it together in Data Studio, and then we've got this. And what this is telling us here is this kind of gives us an idea of how our on-site sessions are mapping with that new cases curve that you can see there. And it just gives us that extra insight. So why did we use this example in particular? Well, not only is it going on at the minute, but this is all still recent data. This is all the most recent, kind of freshest data that you have access to. And with GA360, you're able to take that data, put it into BigQuery, combine it with your own data, and then get some really valuable insight that means that decisions and strategic decision making doesn't have to go off gut feelings, doesn't have to go off numbers that might not be that accurate, that you're not sure match up. You can bring it all together, know exactly how it all fits in together, get a great picture, and make really good decisions that are going to benefit your own business. If you're working with clients, it will benefit them. And it's really, really, really powerful. And GA360 is at the core of all that. Because without that, you can still go into BigQuery and look at all these data sets, but you're not matching it to your own data set. You're not getting that visual representation. So yeah, that's everything with BigQuery, really. So that's the summary of our kind of favorite features of GA360 and why we find it useful. I'm not sure if we've had any questions, so I'm just going to check before I look at closing it off. Okie dokie, it doesn't look like we've had any questions. So Tammy, do you have anything you want to add before we finish this off at all?
No, I think it's covered. Like I say, we just went through our top features of what the key things we think people should be using or considering when thinking about upgrading to the GA360 and what features it can help and mature the business. So like I say, if anyone thinks of a question and wants to contact us later, there's our emails there to be able to contact us with anything, any questions that you have. Nothing's wrong.
Yeah, that's great. Well, again, thanks for everyone who's been listening to it. And again, if you have any further questions, do not hesitate to get in touch with us. We'll be happy to talk. And again, sorry to all the data scientists that are probably going to hate me for making things seem a lot easier than it is. That's great. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thanks, guys.